So question 8 sample, we have find an equation of a line with the given properties. Express your answer either in general form or slope-intercept form. So the given properties is the line passes through these 2 points, a -1, 2, and 1, 3. Now point slope form is defined by y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, where m stands for the slope and x1, y1, so x1, y1 represents an ordered pair or a point. So to do point slope form, we need to know the slope and 1 point on the line. Y equals mx plus b, we have m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. So remember, these are two variable equations. So remember, x represents the output, x represents the input, and y represents the output. So they need to be in the equation as well. So really, the only numbers we have to find are the slope and the y-intercept. The two variables, x and y, should remain the problem. So standard form is also known as general form. In general form, you have this ax plus by is equal to c. There can't be any fractions in the problem, and the coefficient of x is positive. So notice how the x and y are on the same side of the equation, and then the constants on the other side of the equation. But the a, the b, and c are going to be numbers. So the a, b, and c cannot be fractions, and the coefficient of x itself has to be positive. This form here is good to find the x and y intercepts. So the standard form, it has a lot of good purposes. For graphing, x and y intercepts are usually pretty easy to identify. So in our problem, we have 2 points given to us. So the -1, 2, and we've been given the 1, 3. The directions say put it in general form or slope-intercept form. Well, the slope-intercept form is a lot easier than the general form, so I'm just going to work my way towards the slope-intercept form. So since I have 2 points, I can find the slope 2 ways. One is using the slope formula, which is the change in y over the change in x, or in other words, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So if I call -1, 2.1 and 1, 3.2, that becomes my x1, y1, and the 1, 3 becomes my x2, y2. So if I want to find the slope, I could do the change in the y, so that would be 3 minus 2, and then 1 take away a -1. So 3 minus 2 would be 1, and 1 take away -1 is the same thing as 1 plus 1, which would be 2. So my slope is going to be 1/2. Now, to create an equation, though, the point slope form can be used to create an equation of a line. Since I have the slope, all I need is 1 point. Since we've already declared -1, 2, x1, y1, we can just substitute that into our formula. So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. What I can do is replace the y1 and x1 with the ordered pair, and m is the slope. So it's going to be y minus the y1, which is a 2, and we're going to have the slope, which is 1/2, and then we're going to have x minus x1 was a -1. So if I simplify the math, I'm going to have y minus 2 equals then, and I'd have 1/2, then that become x plus 1. And then to put it in slope-intercept form, we have to solve for y. But notice how there's no parentheses on this side either, so I'm going to go ahead and remove the parentheses by multiplying 1/2 through. So y minus 2 equals then this 1/2 x plus 1/2. Then I'm going to add 2 to both sides. So y equals then 1/2 x, and then I have to add 1/2 to a 2. So 2 plus 1/2, or again, if I use a calculator, I could say 2 plus 0.5, which would be 2.5 or 2.5. But I also could just tell the calculator to change it to a fraction. Math, fraction, that gives me 5/2. So So 2.5 is the same thing as 5/2. So remember, 2.5 means two wholes, one whole plus one whole plus a half. Remember, there are two halves per whole, so it means two halves plus two halves plus one half. So two halves would be, and then we have another two halves, that's four halves, and then another half would give me five halves. So remember, when you add fractions, you really just add the numerators to keep the denominator. Now, the shortcut for 2.5 is you can also just multiply 2 times 2 and then add the 1. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 plus 1 would be 5. So that tells me how many halves there are. There are five halves. So notice how the 2 times the 2 plus the 1 creates my numerator, and I keep that denominator of the five halves. So that's how we could do it as well if we didn't want to use the calculator. So that would be the slope-intercept form, y equals 1/2 x plus 5 halves. And that's as far as I want to take it. I'm not going to put it in a standard form.